It's fascinating to explore China's tribal past, a country that many don't immediately think of as having warrior societies. Contrary to the common belief that wild tribes were limited to places like the Amazon, ancient China was also a melting pot of tribal cultures with a rich warrior tradition. The area we now simply call China was originally a patchwork of hundreds of distinct ethnic groups, each with its own cultural practices and ways of life. In the east, the tribe led by Tai Hao, better known as Fuxi, stood out, while the Rong and Di tribes dominated the north and west. To the north, the ancestors of the formidable Xiongnu and Xianbei were known for their resilience and martial skills. One of the most notable among them was the tribe of Huangdi, a legendary leader who not only led his people in battles, but also had ambitions to expand and dominate the vast Central Plains. It's intriguing to dive into the history of ancient tribes and see how they were shaped by their leaders, influencing their identities over time. The names of the tribes often honored these leaders, and those names could change when leadership passed to a new chief. For example, the Huangdi, an ancient tribe, were originally nomads from the mountains of Zhuolu. The name Huangdi reflects their connection to the bear totem, symbolizing their mountainous roots. As they moved to the Central Plains, the Huangdi adopted a tougher lifestyle, focused on gathering and raising livestock. Their story is full of dramatic conflicts and monumental victories, like their triumph over the Yan tribe and the defeat of the 9 Chou-Li tribes. These events not only solidified the Huangdi's presence in the heart of China, but also turned them into legendary figures, whose heroic deeds continue to capture the imagination of the Chinese people to this day. 5,000 years ago, the Yangtze River valleys were already a true cradle of civilization. The Hemudu and Majiabang tribes, pioneers in rice farming, kicked off a saga of agricultural innovations that would later flourish in the Liangzhu culture. This culture, inheriting the Longshan traditions from the Central Plains, not only expanded agricultural knowledge, but also contributed to ongoing cultural enrichment. Starting in the 9th century BC, northern tribes like Guwu and Yue began to deeply engage with China's cultural and political fabric, a movement that turned them into masters of military strategy and local politics. Thanks to their prime location between swamps and rivers, these tribes excelled in the art of shipbuilding and warfare, even being celebrated in epic songs. They also left their mark in metalworking and sophisticated manufacturing techniques, paving the way for significant advancements in their societies. Throughout history, the influence of ancient tribes on Chinese politics became significant. They stood out in key battles, like the campaigns against the state of Chu, which became legendary. The long-standing conflict between Wu and Yue, which lasted for 3 decades, ended with the victory of King Gujian of Yue, who defeated Wu. This era of conflicts was crucial for the rise of Qin Shi Huangdi, the first emperor to unify China. Under his rule, the territories of Wu and Yue were incorporated into the expanding Qin Empire, reaching all the way to Guangdong. With this annexation, new administrative districts were created, and local leaders were absorbed into the central government, solidifying Qin's control over these regions. During the Han Dynasty, the Yue territory was split into 2 parts, Non-Yue in the south and Min-Yue in the southeast. Non-Yue briefly emerged as a power under Zhao Tuo, before being fully conquered by the Han forces, showcasing China's ongoing process of expansion and cultural assimilation. The story of the Yue reveals a fascinating chapter in the cultural formation of China. Gradually, much like the sea shapes the coast, Chinese settlers advanced into lands traditionally occupied by the Yue, pushing these communities into more mountainous and less productive areas. Unlike the nomads of the steppes like the Xiongnu and Xianbei, the Yue were considered peaceful and didn't pose a significant threat to the Chinese Empire. They focused on agriculture, with women typically tending the rice fields while men took on the heavier work of the land. Over the centuries, most of the Yue population blended into the Chinese ethnic and cultural fabric, enriching the country's diversity. Today, many of their descendants live in the provinces of Zhejiang and Guangdong, fully integrated into contemporary Chinese culture. However, there are still groups notably linked to the Tai Kadai peoples, like the Shan, Muong, Dai, and Zhuang, who have managed to preserve their unique cultures and identities. Some of these groups chose to move even farther, seeking refuge in areas dominated by the Mon Khmer, keeping a vital connection to their ancestral legacy. The fascinating tradition of the Shaolin monks blends mysticism and physical skill in a unique way, capturing global attention. These monks aren't just masters of self-defense, they follow a deep spiritual journey that balances body and mind, rooted in the principles of Zen. The strength of the monks, seen in feats like breaking bricks and wood, goes beyond simple physical displays. It reflects deep discipline and mental control. The popularity of the Shaolin monastery has grown a lot thanks to movies and stars like Jackie Chan, but behind the Hollywood glamour lies an authentic legacy of ancient practices. On the border between cultivated lands and the vast steppes, stretching from Hami in the west to Xing'an in the east, there was an enigmatic group of tribes collectively known as the Hill Dwellers. Known to the ancient Chinese since the 7th century BC as the Rong or Hu, these tribes were famous for their martial skill and unshakable bravery. Historians believe they may have been the ancestors of the Tangut clans, living in the regions covering the upper and middle reaches of the Yellow River up to Sichuan during the Iron Age. Intriguingly, these tribes had a unique matriarchal structure. During the day, women were in charge and men followed their orders, a system that only began to change with the gradual process of Sinicization. The saga of the Rong, ancient inhabitants of China, often labeled as aggressors or barbarians, unfolds in rich and intriguing layers. They are seen as the ancestors not only of the Tangut, but also of some Mongol clans and the Xiongnu. Artists from ancient China used to depict the Rong and their Tangut descendants with features that were a mix of Mongolic and Caucasian traits, reflecting the times of territorial expansion. The descendants of the Rong, the Tangut, inherited a rich cultural tapestry from ancient tribes and Tibetan nomads, adopting principles like Zen philosophy. At the height of their power between the 11th and 12th centuries, they rose as a formidable force, even challenging China. The Tangut warriors, known for their bravery and seeming immunity to pain, were the backbone of Xi Xia, a powerful state that emerged from the ruins of past civilizations, extending its rule over vast areas of what was once known as the Middle Kingdom. The once powerful Tangut Empire fell due to the complacency of its warriors, who lost the toughness they once had in the face of non-existent military challenges. Over time, this lack of resilience wore down the empire's defenses, leaving them vulnerable to younger and more motivated conquerors. By the 13th century, this decline led to the complete fall of Xi Xia, marking the end of a historic chapter for the descendants of the Rong. When Genghis Khan rose with his unified nomads, they not only took control of China but also wiped out the Tangut lineage of the Rong. This was a turning point, reintroducing a period of intense changes and tribal conflicts in the region. Going even further back, between 1766 and 1122 BC, the state of Shanyin, also known as Zhongguo, thrived as a stronghold of power. However, like many ancient civilizations, it was eventually overtaken by the Zhou. In that era, kings known as Wangs, like Wu Wang, would grant land and titles to their loyal allies, a system that unfortunately also opened the door to corruption. In ancient times, military training consumed the lives of men who spent years perfecting their combat skills, while women managed household duties and prepared food. As the years passed, the state of Zhou began to crumble due to constant internal conflicts and wars between tribes, breaking up into several smaller feudal states. The battles of that time were so brutal that accounts describe cities and fields covered in bodies after the fights. One of the darkest moments in history happened in 260 BC, during the Battle of Changping, where Qin forces, in a display of cruelty and military strategy, captured and buried alive around 400,000 warriors from the state of Zhao. Qin's military strategy was notably effective, combining the strength of young recruits at the front lines with the solid protection of veterans in support, forming a strong defense that remained resilient even in the toughest situations. The Xiongnu, a formidable confederation of warrior nomads from Asia, made their first appearance in Chinese historical records around the 5th century BC. Due to their frequent raids, the Chinese were forced to build various fortifications, which eventually connected to form what became the Great Wall of China. At the height of their power in the 3rd century BC, under the leadership of a powerful Xiongnu, the Xiongnu consolidated an extensive tribal state, stretching from Mongolia to southern Siberia and from Manchuria to the Pamirs. Armed with an impressive force of 300,000 mounted archers, the Xiongnu army was known for its mobility and skill, posing a significant challenge to Chinese forces. Despite the strength of the Great Wall, it wasn't enough to fully protect China's northern borders. As a result, to counter the Xiongnu, the Chinese turned to diplomatic strategies and marriages between elites, aiming for a cultural fusion that would promote stability and peace. In the 50s BC, the Xiongnu Empire faced significant internal conflicts. While some chose to live under Chinese control, others ventured west to Central Asia. This split marked the beginning of a series of events that would lead to memorable confrontations. For example, in 93 AD, a strategic alliance between the Chinese and the Xianbei led to victory in the Battle of Yibai against the Xiongnu. Fast forward to 155 AD, Xianbei commander Tian Shihai secured a crucial victory that fractured the Xiongnu into 4 factions. One of these factions joined the Xianbei, another settled firmly in China, a third ventured as far as Tabrigaite and the Black Sea, and the last migrated even further west, reaching the areas around the Volga and Don rivers. Over time, it's believed that the Xiongnu, who mixed with Turkic and Ugric tribes, were the ancestors of the Huns in Europe. In the heart of the Himalayas, near the peaceful Lugu Lake, lives the fascinating Mosuo tribe, a living remnant of ancient matrilineal cultures. In this community, women are in charge. They own the land, make key decisions, and control finances, passing down their assets from mother to daughter. This social structure is a stark contrast to more traditional Chinese norms, like arranged marriages. The most unique practice of the Mosuo is the Zhou-hun, or walking marriage, which allows women starting at age 13 to choose their partners for secret nighttime visits. These lovers enter homes by hanging their hats on hooks fixed to the doors, signaling that there are guests with no formal commitment. Children from these unions are raised collectively by the extended maternal family, where multiple generations live together under the guidance of the matriarch, the eldest and most respected woman. In this family mosaic, while women handle the more demanding tasks, men tend to take on lighter duties. The Mosuo offer a rare and intriguing glimpse into a society where women lead both at home and in culture. For centuries, the Mosuo community in China remained distant from the fast-paced cultural development of the rest of the country, protected by their remote location, which required a week-long journey to the nearest city. This isolation preserved their unique way of life, which today has caught the attention of the Chinese government, not as a people to be assimilated, but as a valuable tourist attraction. In Luo Shui, elements of Mosuo culture have been adapted to entertain visitors, though this tourist version isn't always true to the reality of the people. But beyond the curious eyes of tourists, in more remote villages, the Mosuo still preserve and celebrate their ancestral traditions, passing down their values and practices from generation to generation. In modern China, it's rare to find ethnic groups that resist the growing pressure to conform to the dominant cultural molds. The government's trend has been to promote a homogeneous culture, which often puts traditional communities at a crossroads between modernizing and preserving their unique cultural identities.